Okay, let's unpack this. You sent us a whole stack of material articles, research notes, lots of ideas, because you wanted us to dive deep into something that really feels like it's, well, shifting under our feet.
The traditional 9 to 5 workday.
Exactly. It's this structure that, feels almost ancient now, like a relic from the industrial age, really designed for factory floors, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And the sheer speed AI has just burst onto the scene. I mean, think about ChatGPT hitting 100 million users.
Right.
Way faster than the internet, even smartphones.
Right.
It just makes that old 9 to 5 model feel increasingly kind of out of sync with how we could be working today.
It really is dizzying. And the sources you sent, they show something like, 78% of organizations expecting to use AI in some way by early 2025?
Yeah, it's not theoretical. Not anymore.
It's here. And it's forcing us to rethink basically everything, not just what we do, but, when we do it, where we do it.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive, digging into the material you gave us.
Yeah.
It's not just the simple automation story.
Yep.
It's how AI is acting as this catalyst for a really fundamental rethink. Schedules, roles, how we measure performance, even how we manage teams.
And those really complex ethical questions, too, that come with all of this change.
Definitely. Big ones.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The most sort of tangible impacts AI is having right now. We hear tons about automation, right? AI taking over manual jobs, assembly lines, cashiers.
Or automating things like invoice processing, saving companies thousands of hours. That's definitely happening. And the sources, they give plenty of examples.
So you're saying there's more to it?
Well, yeah, the more interesting shift, I think, that AI is enabling is the automation of more complex cognitive functions. It's almost like AI is becoming this sophisticated digital workforce.
Or cybernetic teammate. I think one source called it that.
Exactly. A teammate that can, say, summarize huge amounts of info or write code, handle pretty sophisticated customer chats.
That P&G experiment in the sources, that was a great example. Professionals working with AI.
Right, on innovation challenges.
They produced more balanced, kind of well-rounded solutions than either the humans or the AI did on their own.
That collaborative piece is so key. It frees us up, the human workers, from the routine stuff, the data-heavy lifting, the source, research from Vanguard, insights from experts like David Otter, Eric Horvitz. They keep hammering this point. AI handles the repetitive.
So people can focus on the higher value work.
Spot on. Complex problem-solving, creativity, strategy, interpersonal skills. The stuff where human nuance, experience, it's still essential.
And this is where that rigid 9 to 5 really starts to, chafe, doesn't it?
It really does, because that kind of creative, strategic work, it often doesn't thrive on a strict clock. It needs flexibility.
Time for deep focus, maybe, or spontaneous collaboration.
Exactly. And if you look at how the sources break down AI's impact, like in Table 1, it's not just task automation, it's cognitive augmentation, creating new roles.
Like AI ethics officer, prompt engineer.
And transforming existing roles, putting more emphasis on those uniquely human skills, emotional intelligence, creativity.
Okay, so AI changes the kind of work, frees up time. That leads us straight into productivity. And the numbers, they look pretty compelling.
They do. Okay. That St. Louis Fed study on generative AI users, they found, on average, people saved about 5.4% of their work hours.
Which, in a standard 40-hour week, that's over 2 hours saved.
Yeah, about 2.2 hours. And for folks using Gen AI really heavily, the savings were even bigger, especially in information-heavy industries.
Okay, so zoom out a bit. Those individual savings must add up, right?
Yeah, the study suggests it could mean maybe a 1.1% boost in aggregate productivity and maybe a 33% jump in individual productivity when you're actually using the AI.
And then there's McKinsey projecting, $4.4 trillion in added productivity potential globally. Huge numbers.
It sounds like a clear runway to shorter workdays, doesn't it?
I think so.
But here's where the sources get really interesting and maybe a bit contradictory. This potential productivity paradox.
Paradox, meaning, okay, we get these efficient tools, but we don't actually work less.
That's exactly it. Some studies are actually indicating that employees in jobs exposed to AI are logging longer hours.
Longer. How does that work if AI makes them faster?
Well, the sources point to a couple of things. Employers might just raise the bar, right? Expect more output in the same time because the tools make it possible.
Oh, okay, more pressure.
Or, and this is a big one, AI is sometimes used for more intensive monitoring. That can increase pressure, make people feel they need to be on constantly, potentially stretching out the workday.
So the tech isn't the whole story.
Not at all. The takeaway here is crucial. The impact on our hours isn't just about the tech itself. It's heavily, heavily shaped by management choices, company culture, incentives.
So using AI for well-being, for flexibility, that needs conscious decisions, not just chasing output.
Exactly. It's not automatic.
Okay, so AI gives us the potential for more efficiency, more flexibility, but realizing that for actual work-life balance isn't guaranteed. Which brings us to how AI is maybe acting as a catalyst for, new ways of working, pushing beyond the clock.
Right. First off, it's definitely accelerating hybrid and remote work.
The pandemic kicked that off, obviously.
For sure. But AI is making those models much more efficient, more sustainable long term. Think about AI tools enhancing communication, collaboration.
Like the AI in Zoom or Teams doing real-time transcriptions, translations, smart scheduling.
Exactly. Or AI helping with project management for distributed teams. Companies like GitLab, fully remote for ages, they show how tech enables this globally.
And this tech enablement, it lines up perfectly with what employees say they want, right?
Yeah.
The surveys show a huge desire for flexibility.
Overwhelmingly, so many people want fully remote or hybrid. Flexibility isn't a perk anymore. It's becoming like a baseline expectation. And AI helps meet that demand. It kind of erodes the old argument for needing everyone in the office 9 to 5.
Okay, so if AI boosts productivity and helps distributed teams, then the idea of a shorter work week starts to feel a lot more, practical.
It really does. It shifts it from just an aspiration to something potentially real. And the sources highlight some big trials.
Like the UK 4-day week pilot, that was huge.
Yeah, over 60 companies. Average hours dropped quite a bit from 38 to 34. But get this, revenue actually went up slightly during the trial, and stress, burnout, way down.
Wow. And Microsoft Japan had that earlier trial too, right? Big productivity jump there.
Around 40%, yeah. And Unilever in New Zealand, they maintained output with fewer hours.
These results must be fueling some of those predictions we're seeing.
Absolutely. You've got Jamie Dimon talking about, a 3.5-day week for future generations. Bill Gates thinking maybe 2 or 3 days, though maybe with some financial trade-offs.
And experts predicting maybe a 4-day week for many within 5 years. Then maybe 3.5 days in 10.
Exactly. And it's interesting, the sources also note that companies already doing 4-day weeks, they're way more likely, like 3 times more likely, to be heavy AI adopters.
So maybe there's a link, an openness to new structures and leveraging the tech.
Seems plausible, and this loops back to that productivity paradox. Making shorter weeks work depends on managing by outcomes, not just hours clocked in.
Which AI can help with.
Yeah, exactly. Which leads us to that bigger shift.
Towards outcome-oriented work. Moving away from time is the main measure.
Yeah.
How does AI enable that?
Well, AI-powered performance management systems are a huge part of it. They can pull in data from lots of places to give a more sort of holistic, objective view of performance tied directly to goals, to KPIs. It moves away from just subjective evaluation or just, were you at your desk?
And potentially reduces human bias. The sources mentioned some employees actually preferred AI evaluations for fairness.
Yeah, that was an interesting finding. Plus, generative AI can help tailor those goals, make them really specific to roles, industries, even individual strengths. That's pretty critical for outcome-based work to function well.
Right.
So this ability to define and track outcomes better, it opens the door for more dynamic work structures. Project-based, maybe even what some sources call dissolved work.
Dissolved. What does that mean exactly?
Imagine tasks just sort of emerging dynamically in a digital space. AI agents handle routine stuff, and human knowledge workers function more like on-demand consultants, guided by AI-defined objectives.
Stanford HAI's research mentioned something like that. Collaborative AI systems with human oversight.
Precisely. Multiple AI agents, human guiding them.
That picture implies less need for just constant human presence, 9 to 5, just doing tasks, more oversight, more strategy.
Yeah, potentially leading to leaner, maybe flatter organizations, more employee ownership over how and when they hit their goals.
But, and it's a big but, the sources also flag the downsides, right?
Absolutely. This shift could mean more, say, precarity for some workers, more competition, maybe fewer traditional benefits if we're not careful.
So we need a serious conversation about adapting things like labor laws, social safety net.
To make sure the benefits are shared. Yeah, absolutely critical.
Which brings us to how organizations themselves are changing. You mentioned flatter structures.
That's right. AI can automate a lot of traditional middle management tasks, scheduling, reporting, routine monitoring, just pushing info around.
So those layers become less necessary.
Potentially, yeah. If AI handles the info flow and basic oversight, Gartner's prediction is pretty stark. 20% of organizations eliminating over half their middle managers by 2026 using AI.
Wow. Workday even calls them people managing agents.
Right. So this could lead to more decentralized decisions, more agility, moving away from command and control towards, trust, empowerment, distributed leadership.
And those AI performance systems provide the transparency needed for managers to handle maybe wider teams.
That's the idea. Which means the role of the human manager has to change dramatically. They're not just overseers anymore.
So what do?
They shift focus. More strategic, value-added stuff, innovation, long-term planning, coaching, mentoring, really cultivating those human-centric skills.
Yeah.
Creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence.
The OECD highlighted that too, didn't they? Managers needing business process understanding, social skills.
Exactly. They become facilitators of these human AI teams, making sure AI aligns with the goals.
And this is where that term algorithmic management pops up. AI software doing tasks human managers used to do.
Yeah, and the sources are clear. Potential upsides like efficiency, consistency, maybe objectivity.
But also risks.
Big risks. Worker autonomy could suffer, stress could increase, trust could erode, huge questions around accountability, privacy. It's a balancing act.
And could we see new hierarchies? Like based on who's good at managing the AI?
It's a definite possibility. Being proficient with AI oversight could become really influential.
Okay, you mentioned AI in performance management, enabling outcome-based work. Let's dig into that a bit more because the sources really emphasize it.
Yeah, it's potentially revolutionary for how we evaluate work. AI can gather and analyze way more data from more sources for a fuller picture.
Less prone to human biases like recency bias, maybe?
Potentially, yeah. That's why some employees felt it could be fairer, as we mentioned.
And Gen AI helps personalize goals, KPIs.
Makes them specific, tailored, and enables continuous feedback, not just annual reviews, but this is also where the really critical challenges surface.
Privacy and surveillance again.
Exactly. These tools can enable really extensive monitoring, activity, productivity, even communications, sentiment analysis.
Which sounds helpful for performance, but
the sources stress how easily it ticks into privacy intrusion. It can seriously erode trust, cause a lot of stress, and people worry, rightly, about how that data gets used.
It's that paradox again, isn't it? Moving away from the physical 9-to-5 office.
Could mean more pervasive digital oversight if we're not careful. The where and when become less important than how closely are you being watched digitally.
Yeah, that's a chilling thought.
Absolutely. So, robust data governance, transparency about what's collected and why, clear ethical lines. The sources say these are non-negotiables. Otherwise, AI performance management could just become oppressive.
We need clear rules distinguishing monitoring from surveillance. What's fair play when AI is involved?
Big questions.
This leads us into the broader challenges the sources lay out. Number one seems to be the skills gap.
It's huge and immediate. The workforce needs new skills. AI literacy is basic now. Plus data analysis, critical thinking, creativity, and crucially, how to actually work with AI effectively.
The WEF projection, 70% of skills changing by 2030. That's enormous.
Yeah.
And the OECD points to demand for management, social skills, originality.
It demands continuous learning, which is a very different mindset from the old static 9-to-5 career path.
But are people getting the training they need?
That's the problem. Many employees, according to the sources, say they aren't. And leaders might underestimate the challenge or how much informal AI use is already happening.
So employers need to invest heavily in training, foster that learning culture.
Yes, and leaders need to model it. And critically, this skills gap connects directly to inequality.
How so?
If upskilling isn't accessible to everyone, the divide widens. You get a two-tiered workforce. Those who can leverage AI and those left behind.
Okay, and we've touched on bias and surveillance, but the sources really hammer these as major ethical hurdles.
They do. Algorithmic bias in hiring, promotion, evaluation, it's a real risk. Even if AI feels fairer sometimes, it can bake in biases from its training data.
So we need audits, transparency, maybe ethical review boards.
The sources strongly suggest things like that, yes. And on surveillance, that constant monitoring capability of AI, it's flagged again and again. Privacy intrusion, lost trust, stress, data misuse worries.
That paradox. Escaping the office walls only to face more digital scrutiny.
Exactly. Strong data governance, transparency, ethical guidelines. The sources frame these as essential foundations for trust and responsible AI use. It has to support people, not just control them.
Then there are the big economic questions. Inclusive growth, disparities. AI promises productivity, but could it just concentrate wealth?
That's a major concern raised in the material. Workers without the right skills or access to retraining could be really disadvantaged. Job disruption is a real possibility, potentially fueling inequality and insecurity.
And this is where concepts like universal basic income, UBI, enter the discussion. Figures like Musk, Altman backing it.
Yeah, the sources discuss UBI proposals, pilot results, which seem mixed, some good effects on poverty, health, but less clear on employment.
And there are questions about the motivations, right? And whether UBI alone really fixes structural issues.
Right. It might not and could even entrench them if not part of a bigger strategy. But the takeaway is clear. AI disruption means we have to seriously consider UBI and other major social safety net reforms.
Okay, and finally, let's circle back one last time to that productivity paradox.
Right. The risk that AI efficiency doesn't mean more leisure, but just more pressure. Higher expectations, tighter deadlines.
We saw those findings. Some AI-exposed workers logging longer hours, work bleeding into personal time.
Exactly. And while some studies, like that UK pilot, showed reduced burnout, and some AI users report positive effects, the risk to mental health is substantial if organizations just push for output and control.
So it's a call to action for companies.
Definitely. Foster supportive environments, encourage digital breaks, provide mental health resources, use AI to enhance well-being, not just track clicks or demand more output.
Any sustainable alternative to the 9-to-5 has to prioritize human dignity and health alongside productivity. That seems fundamental.
It touches on really basic questions about power, control, the value we place on human work versus just efficiency.
Yeah, it's a deep rethinking needed. Culture, management, labor rights, the whole balance. So, okay, bringing this deep dive together, AI is clearly this profound force shaking the foundations of the old 9-to-5 model. It's enabling flexibility, maybe shorter weeks, a focus on outcomes.
For sure. But the key thing is, the future isn't predetermined by the tech. It's about the choices we make.
Leaders, organizations, policymakers, us.
Exactly. What we're probably heading for isn't one single model, but more like a spectrum, right? From maybe modified 9-to-5s with AI helping out to really different outcome-based human AI team models.
And the core challenge in all this, it's questioning that deep-seated idea that hours worked automatically equals value or security.
That's the fundamental shift in thinking.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with this maybe final thought to chew on. What if AI actually lets us see work less as just time traded for income and more as, an avenue for making a contribution for creativity, for fulfillment? And maybe the most critical question, how do we proactively design that future so it benefits everyone? Make it productive, sure, but also equitable and genuinely human-centric. Something to think about.